back to another episode of Word Up with Danny Katz. It is my great honor and pleasure to be joined once again by a multimedia artist and astrologer and author and prolific creator and maker, Antero Alli. Hi, Antero.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. So many things. I know that you had wanted to dive into fundamentalism as a language virus, which I'm super excited to get into. And I also want to talk to you about your filmmaking because I did get a chance to watch The Alchemy of Sulfur. And I also want to talk to you about your upcoming Experiential Astrology course. So this is everything on my to-do list for us today. Is there anything else that you want me to add into the mix?
Oh, that's a mouthful right there.
I know. I'm an overachiever.
Yeah, the fundamentalist virus, that is an idea I've been following. I don't know if I made it up or I just picked it up from somewhere, but I've been looking at it for about 30 years. And especially how I've seen it crop up in a lot of different sectors. It's commonly, I think, associated, the word associated fundamentalism with Christian dogmatic little bigots are the fundamentalists. And it turns out, from what I've seen, the fundamentalist thinkers of Christianity make up a pretty small portion of how far the epidemic, the fundamentalist virus, has really spread into sciences, into other religions, not just Christianity, and even in the common language of the people during the current era of escalating uncertainty and the pressing need to become so fucking damn sure about anything. And it's that impulse of certitude over perception, or certitude almost as an attempt to achieve more security, a sense of security when the state of uncertainty overwhelms, the personal nervous system and produces anxiety. And that's another area too that I'm really fascinated with, is the difference between anxiety and uncertainty, because I don't see them as the same at all. I'm looking at uncertainty as pretty much an objective truth. Life feels uncertain to me. It has always felt that way. I don't know what's going to happen next. That's the uncertainty I'm talking about. The anxiety I've experienced in my life, and the people that I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people from all different, walks of life in different fields, seems to express the individual threshold for how much uncertainty that person can permit before they start behaving like a nervous monkey. And so as an artist type, art is something that I've been, laying down my heart and soul for as long as I can remember. And I'm like almost 70 years right now, and I haven't stopped. It'll just, continue until my, last breath probably. But as an artist, I've come to see and experience uncertainty as a creative state. And so I don't want to buffer myself from the experience of uncertainty because it fuels my creative impulse. So I've had to learn how to permit more and more uncertainty. And one way I've learned to do that is through certain linguistic adjustments, certain semantic adjustments in the way I think and speak. One example, there's, quite a few, but one example, maybe you've already picked up on this, but I rarely use the word is, is. What I discovered about the word is, it represents in mathematics the equal sign. This equals that, this is that. And I discovered that the more ises I was using, whether it was in speech or in a paragraph I was writing, that the thinking and the writing became more formulaic. And I was like, yuck, total huge yuck on that. I don't like formulaic thinking. I don't like anything formulaic. It kills the spontaneity. It crimps creativity. It makes everything predictable. If it's formulaic, it's predictable. Now, unfortunately, the Hollywood film industry and the music industry at large has tapped into that predictability and those formulas that are able to, you know, transform into big bucks, heavy dollars, and so there's been a kind of a commercial sanction on formulaic thinking and just following the formula of things, and so we see this all across the board in the films and the music and the television, very predictable stuff, most of it. And for me, I can't watch mainstream films anymore because in the first 5 or 10 minutes, I know where it's going, so I just turn it off. So anyway, I'm going to stop here and, let you respond. Or I can just go running on here.
I love it. Yeah, there's so many pieces here. So, and I'm completely with you on the formulaic nature of anything Hollywood's putting out these days, where I personally can't stomach it myself. I'm curious what sort of replacements you're using for is, and how you've noticed that shifting your writing and your communications.
Well, I've had to early on, probably started for me, it was around 1991, 92, following a tragedy, a great loss of my second daughter, Zoe, that completely flattened my ego, crushed my life as I knew it. I didn't know what to live for anymore. And yet at the same time, it opened up portals of perception that I had not experienced before. In other words, in the moment, I had no idea why what was happening or how it was happening, but I was perceiving way more reality than I knew what to do with. Just a lot of impressions coming in. I don't know what to do with all this. And so, up until that point, my go-to outlet for, expressing my perceptions was creating theater, which I had done for the previous 20 years or so. And I was thinking, how do I put this into theater? And I just couldn't find a way. And that's when I realized I needed to start looking into cinema and how to learn enough about cameras and videos and film cameras and the process of making films. And then finally, I started discovering in the process of filmmaking a very far more complex, multi-leveled or multi-tiered outlet, for not just moving images, but music, sound, all kinds of texture and experience that I couldn't really produce, in theater on the stage, or at least not as effectively. So that's how it started for me, and it continues to this day, because when certain doors of perception are blasted open, they can't really close them again. The doors, the hinges are flown off, and they're flying out into the cosmos. I'm not going to get those back. So I have a responsibility to my health, to my art, to my soul, to stay creative. And how I do that is I keep making films, and they just keep coming through me. And I take a rest period, a recovery period between films, and then it keeps coming back. So, this is one way that I've come come into it. There are other kind of I don't want to say minor adjustments because they're significant. They're small but significant adjustments I've made, and I think probably the main one there is training my intellect, which is that part of me which is problem solving, making sense of things, labeling things, kind of putting things in order in my head and all that. The intellect, I've over the years, because this has taken a long time, training the intellect to follow the dictates of intuition. So I'm actually guided by intuition, and then intellect has learned how to give articulation to my intuitive impressions without violating or killing them, because intellect can be very tyrannical. It can become, in a sense, its own kind of fundamentalist preacher saying, oh, this is the right thing. I know what to do. Don't do that, do this. All those kinds of messages, intellect can perform. But I've kind of whipped it into shape. I don't know how that happened, but, it was a kind of do or die situation, because I didn't want to make dead art, basically, is what it came to. And I think that any art made from conscious mind or intellect is pretty much going to produce dead art. I needed to find a way to serve the expression of art that comes alive, that's animated beyond my control, beyond my comprehension, where it kind of runs away from me and has a life of its own. And that's something that's really worth following. It makes me feel more alive just pursuing that.
Yeah, it's interesting as you're speaking, Antero, is, and I'm writing a book right now, so I know what it's like when we're immersed in a project. We kind of filter everything through that lens and, through the themes that we're exploring. But, when you first brought up anxiety versus uncertainty, and you're talking about the intellect coming into right relationship with intuition, I keep thinking of the capital M, capital F, masculine, feminine polarities, and how uncertainty is fundamentally feminine, right? That's the void, and that's where every artist has to go to, if we're going to stay alive and really deal in the realms of novelty, of, really channeling and working with the unknown, versus like recycling the kind of same formula that's worked for us in the past. And I think, I see the intellect as being fundamentally masculine, which is why it's been, we've all been indoctrinated to put so much emphasis on it, while, less cultivation towards the intuition, which is feminine. And in my mind, when we talk about the return of the divine feminine, it doesn't really have anything to do with incarnate men and women. It has to do with coming into right relationship with the intellect and intuition, and learning to honor these like quieter, more mysterious functions to the same extent that we honor the intellect and reason and rationality.
Well, see, I'm hearing you out, and I'm going along with everything except for the is word, because you've basically equated intellect is masculine, intuition is feminine, and that's where I get off that boat. That boat has sailed for me long ago. There's truth to what you're saying, but there's also, I feel more flexibility, or let's say almost ambiguity, because as I have known intuition merging with intellect, so they're not so separate in me. And in that merging, it's neither masculine nor feminine, and it's not even androgynous. It's like a new creature, a new entity, a new energy, let's call it, when in the merging of intuition and intellect. It's kind of an alchemy in a way. And, if you're looking at, kind of classical or traditional alchemical images, there's always, masculine and feminine, but they never stay apart for long, that there's a merging there. masculine and feminine merge together. And that's only the beginning, I think, of the greater work of alchemy, is the merging part of the masculine and feminine. And then there's, further stages where they are pulling apart to redefine themselves in relation to each other. And then there can be this third point, neither masculine nor feminine, but perhaps representing the consciousness capable of traversing between masculine and feminine, but does not define itself as residential to either. It's not, identified as gender. It's more maybe as pure consciousness, or whatever you want to call that agency, allowing us to traverse between masculine and feminine without identifying with either.
Yeah, I completely agree. And to be clear, like when I'm using the phrases masculine, feminine, I'm not referring to embodied gender at all. I'm referring to the complementary opposites. And I see it, I'm a dancer. So I see it if, there's a muscle in my leg that's been underdeveloped. It's going to take some effort for me to get that muscle to be as strong as some of the other muscles, so that I'm not overcompensating or leaning too hard on other parts of the body. And once they're all as strong and as nimble, then they can play and create their own flow without me having to overthink, I have to bring this one muscle up to speed. So that's kind of my thought in terms of humanity becoming more comfortable with the unknown and that larger uncertainty. And I think that anxiety that you mentioned, that's like that urge to control, because we haven't yet developed or cultivated our comfort in the unknown. So it's like that go-to overused tool, let me claim to be certain, let me control, and then moving back into fundamentalism. But I'm curious, before we get back to the fundamentalism piece, which I'd like to spend a little bit more time on, is A, what words are you employing to replace is, and B, like, do you find it frustrating to dialogue with other people who aren't on board with some of these like linguistic hiccups and snags to the extent that you are?
When I first discovered is as a kind of an equation symbol, it was really difficult to even notice how many times I was using that word. And it was even more difficult once I was aware of how to not just begin minimizing, because I couldn't take them all out, it was just, how do I minimize them? But then how do I think and speak? How do I write in a way, without turning everything into a formula? Like, oh, this is that, and this is that, and I hope you agree with me. So boring. So one of the things I've discovered, and I use this word discovery, to me it's an important part of this. I think everyone has to kind of discover it on their own, meaning how are they going to talk with less ises, with less formulaic thinking and speaking and writing. One of the things I've discovered in the process of writing, speaking, and thinking with less and less of the is word, is that my writing and my thinking and my speaking tend to be more direct expressions of an action. It brings a dynamism to my language. It brings I'm not see, every time you create a formula, and you're basically asking whoever's listening or reading you to agree with it. This is this. Oh yeah, that is that. And I'm not really looking for agreements. There's something that happens socially, and you've seen this, I'm sure. It's a very common thing. You get on the phone with a friend, and a lot of the conversation goes on about, I did this and this. Oh yeah, I know what that is. I did that too. Oh no, this is what I did. Oh yeah, I did that too. So there's this constant agreement upon agreement upon agreement. So that's a form of social bonding, agreements. Oh,
Mhm.
I had that experience. Yes, I had that experience. Same thing. However, energetically, what happens with the accumulation of agreements is the energy level starts sinking. It goes down. It doesn't go up. It's something you would have to observe for yourself to see. And this is part of the reason I'm not really keen on agreements. Like when I post things on social media or Facebook or, stuff like that, I don't do it for likes or people to agree with me at all. And that's the thing. I just post what I'm sharing, what I see and know, and that's it. And then I walk away. I'm not looking for agreements because I don't like the feeling of constantly being in the field of everybody agreeing with everybody else. I don't experience that as any genuine or authentic unity amongst people. I really don't. It's a kind of a superficial and kind of a fakey poo unity.
I'm sorry, I was tickled by fakey poo.
Yeah. Yeah. What tickles me too.
This is really interesting because I've recently started giving talks and working with clients with a coaching program that I'm calling the language of healing. And when I'm teaching people about transmuting physical discomfort or expressions of dis-ease, I dissuade them from using the I am or the I have, and instead to use more active verbs that are coding, that are like programming the body for motion, right? So it's not like I am arthritic. It's not that I have arthritis. It's that I'm in the process of healing arthritis. So would that example kind of line up with how you have been moving away from is?
Oh, that's great. Those are really good examples. Yeah, anything to help yourself and the people you care about, or maybe your clients, support a move into their more direct firsthand experience of what the hell might be going on. This capacity for direct experience has been severely diminished by the depersonalization trends of the culture at large. So, and there's a lot of different expressions of that trend. It's the economy, it's the interweb, it just goes on and on. And if you're not somehow fighting for your own consciousness, it gets whittled away. You start dumbing down. And so, I think it's to me, I just use the word is. To me, it's the good fight. To me, fighting for my consciousness is probably is again. See, I stumble over it again. Now, I'm not trying to completely eliminate it. I'm not demonizing is. Okay, it's not like the evil thing that everybody should stop doing. I'm just saying, pay attention to it. Look at look what happens when you notice it more, and notice the results. Notice the effect of, especially if you're a writer. Take a look at a paragraph and circle the ises, and you'll discover right away the degree of formulaic thinking that you're trapped in.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And you and I are sharing a similar path in terms of rewriting our own habitual languaging patterns. One thing that I notice about is, and all the other derivations, is that it transmits a frequency of stagnancy. And I think in addition to the depersonalization trend, there's this other op going on to convince us that we're static. And that the way things are is the way they will always be. So, I'm always encouraging people to use active verbs to accelerate our own transformation and our own growth.
It's a great idea. It reminds me of one of the portals of perception that blasted open when my daughter passed away. And that was realizing how immersed I I had become in a death-ignorant culture.
Yes.
And in that death-ignorant culture were pretty much all things that are dying, like people, they're either in the hospital or in the morgue, but they're, you know, there's more of it on the streets now. There's more of this kind of awareness of impermanence now. But I think that part of the advertising appeal to the youth culture is very large. There's a large influence and force in this country. And it promotes a false sense of permanence. And so it's it builds a kind of naivete around impermanence, which, like uncertainty, represents an objective, truth. Impermanence, everything that lives will die. I don't see any exceptions.
No, absolutely not. Are you familiar with Stephen Jenkinson's work and writings around death?
I have passed through it. I don't really read writings on the death passages and dying, mostly because my experience of impermanence has been stamped so deeply into my heart. It's practically like my soul has this big tattoo that says impermanence across it. It's something I live with every day, so I don't really need to, read about it.
Right. And so I'm curious to know how your own lived experience has shifted by rooting is out of your lexicon.
Oh, well, I've opened to a deeper and more consistent access to creativity in the creative state.
Mm.
And I've opened up to a more supple imagination. And in that, I've been able to combat another epidemic, a linguistic epidemic of overly literalist thinking.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, no fault of their own, is part of the impersonal culture at large. The culture is not personal, impersonal. And it supports this kind of taking everything so damn literally. Well, that alone has managed to put a death spell over the cultural imagination, that the imagination of the culture is turned belly up, and it's replaced, supplanted by this kind of more over literalist thinking and writing and so forth. And the problem with it tends to be disguised, or it tries to disguise itself as like some kind of realism or journalistic integrity, or something that is carries more weight, legitimacy, and truth than the imagination. And I don't believe that. To me, I experience imagination as a function of intelligence that comes alive in childhood, and many children still live with an active imagination. And active imagination means you're not just imagining, but you are learning to inhabit the worlds you imagine. And then it becomes an entire state of enchantment that the individual has learned to live in a world of their own creation. Now, this also, of course, has its dangers, like anything, but it allows for a discovery of your own vision and the opportunity to create meaning in an existence that appears to be completely void of meaning. And so if you have enough imagination and enough will and incentive, you can create the meaning that you used to be seeking. You just stop seeking it. You just make it up.